Hi everyone, I'm James. You probably know me as James Raw from FireProPC.com or the ModPack Testing Ground Discord. I'm putting this video together today to discuss how to use custom forms to build moves for FirePro World. Hopefully everyone watching this should be pretty familiar with this window, the WASMake screen. If you're not, this video is probably not right for you. This is kind of the advanced class for move creation, so I would definitely suggest you check out some of the other resources on FirePro PC to get started. I know Dakota has a great walkthrough on building your first move. That's an excellent way to kind of get your feet wet before you start messing around with forms and getting really deep into it. But for those of you who are familiar with this screen, I would assume that most of you have spent a decent amount of time in this area here at the bottom of the screen. And this is, where you would mostly be using existing move parts to kind of splice things together. Now, as you probably are aware, every line in this section corresponds to a specific form ID, and you can tell this because all the form IDs are here in this column that is helpfully marked form. So what are form IDs? Before we get deep into this, well, basically what form IDs are an indexing system for a collection of about 40,000 individual body positions within the game. So if you poke around through a move, you're going to see a bunch of different forms. So this is the basic move that loads when you get into WASMake, and it's this guy doing the backflip and then giving his little muscle pose, a very normal, common move that is, for some reason, the basic move. But as you can go through it, you see that the number in the form column changes throughout, and that's because you're basically creating an animation using a bunch of different body positions, all that are indicated by a specific form ID. What I would really encourage you to do, really before you start making custom forms, or before you get to the step of making custom forms, is poke around with the existing forms in the game. There are a lot of them. Some of them are really good. There may be some things that do the thing you're looking for, and you can, even if you're not seeing a specific thing, you could just change some of the digits in here and move things around and try to find something. God, you never even know what the heck is in here. And it might make your life a little easier than jumping right into custom moves. But assuming that you've decided you definitely want to make a custom move, I'm going to show you how to do it. So now we're going to kind of move the action away from this part of the screen that you're most familiar with, and move more into these parts of the screen here. So essentially, the animation of the image of the guy over here, and this list of a bunch of different lines here. So before we get to the guy, I want to just give a quick explanation of what this all is. So basically what this is a list of every single body part that this guy here is comprised of. So we've got numbered 1 through 9, and then alphabetical from there of A through F. So what is the significance of the order? Well, the significance of the order is that the thing that's at the top of this list is, from a layering perspective, the body part that is the furthest out in his body. It's the one that would be closest to the camera. So in this particular case, this top line is this hand right here. Okay, so that's the body part that if all other of his body parts were aligned with it, that would be the one that you would see, and everything else would fall behind it. Okay, and that's the first things first. Now there are kind of ways to game that, and we'll talk about that as we go through this. But at a very basic level, that's what the ordering system means. Now the thing at the bottom of the list here, I don't remember what body part this is. I think it actually is his back forearm. This would be the furthest back body part. So again, you line them all up, that would be the one that you would see behind everything else, okay? Or you wouldn't see behind everything else. Okay, that's what the ordering system is. I've seen people say, "Oh, well, it's always ordered with the arm parts here and then this part there." It's actually not. Every move ID or form ID might have a completely different grouping. You might have arms in different places. You might have body parts in different areas. You can't rely on that. What the only thing you can rely on to determine what you're doing is essentially, or what body part it references, is this column that runs down here. And yes, it's the one in Japanese. This is the one where it will tell you what the body part is. So yeah, that sucks. I mean, obviously, if you're Japanese, that's fine. But I don't speak Japanese. I can't read Japanese, so that kind of stinks for me. So how do I deal with it? Well, the way I deal with it is I don't deal with it at all. Actually, there is a shortcut that you can do that will make your life significantly easier. So in this particular case, what I want to do with this guy is I want to take his back right arm here, and I want to just have him waving hi to somebody. I just want to have it up in the air and just kind of give a little hi, right? So right now it's kind of out in this sort of almost handshakey type position. I want to get it up above his head to where he's just kind of waving hi to somebody that's across the ring from him. So how am I going to do that? Well, I could use these over here and manipulate the body part, but that's stupid and terrible, and I don't want to do it. So what I am going to do is I'm going to use this trick that makes life so much easier. I am, with my mouse, going to float over, or in more cases than not, close to the body part I want to move. So in this case, I'm going to move his hand, and I'm going to right-click by it. Now you notice as I right-click, over on the right side of the screen, one of the layers got highlighted, and if you recognize that one little character, that one character is the only character I ever remember, which is the hand character. That line just got highlighted. That means it's active. So now with my mouse, and I am not actually even holding down the button right now. I just clicked the right button on the mouse one time. I now have the ability to move this hand wherever I want to put it. Okay, so now it did all the work for me. It picked the line I wanted to pick. It's now allowing me to move this thing. And as we're kind of moving it, pay attention to what's going on the columns to the left there in that E row. So as I'm moving left and right, we're seeing that MX column is the one that's changing. That's your X value column. That's what's going left or right. As I go up and down, that's the Y value. So that's what's happening there. Now, I could be, inputting these numbers individually. I could be changing them one at a time to move this thing, but it's so much easier to do this with my mouse. Here's another thing you can do with your mouse. You've got if you've got a mouse with a scroll wheel, use the scroll wheel, and all of a sudden, I'm rotating the hand to the position I want to have it in. Okay? So again, using that. Now, as I'm doing that, you can see that the digits in the ROL column over on the right are the ones now changing. All right, so I'm changing that, and I'm getting this right where I want it to be. And once I'm happy with the location, I'm now going to left click. And now it's in place. I can move my mouse, and it's not going to move anywhere. Now, we do see some of this sort of weirdness that's occurring here, where now I got a bunch of lines highlighted. And that can be kind of a bear, because basically what that is doing is that's actually highlighted a bunch of different body parts. Well, if that happens, just click in the box and it's gone, okay? So we've moved this hand. We're happy with this hand, but I actually don't like the sort of the positioning of this hand. I don't like the way it is, the angle of the hand. This looks like, he's going to karate chop somebody. I want him to be waving high. That's easy enough to do. So again, I could go down to the line here, but I'm actually, once again, I'm going to right-click this thing, okay, just to highlight the line, okay, and I'm going to right-click it again, and right-clicking it a second time just leaves it in place, but my line is highlighted. So now what I want to do is I want to change the angle of this guy. I want to kind of make it face like you would if you were saying hi to somebody. And the way you do that is this column here. So again, we've got the X column that's moving it left to right, the Y column that's moving it up and down. This one is the body part itself. This is the angle of the body part. If any of you guys have done anything with custom parts, You should probably recognize some of these angles that as you go through this, because the custom parts are very much aligned with these types of angles. So I'm going to click through this, and as I do this, you notice that the hand positioning, the hand angle keeps changing. Now, this would actually be a pretty decent high location or high position. The same here, maybe not so much. And I'll just show you. You guys can keep going through this and just see all the different types of hands. So we had an open hand. Now we're seeing some closed hands. If you go deep into this enough, you're going to get like some of the funkier finger options. Like I think we got some eventually. Oh yeah, we got some Hardy Boys fingers just pointing. We got metal piece, and that's pretty much it. Eventually we will run out here. There's only 99 options. Some of these parts don't have a full 99, so I'm just gonna kind of go through and back to the beginning here, because I think this one will be sort of the one I will go with, just number 00. Okay, and so that's basically all that's going on in this, and maybe even turn it a little bit. So what else are you going to see in these things? So one other option that you might have is if I have a hand position, I think it's backwards from where it needs to be. You can use this to flip it horizontal. Vertical does it obviously top to bottom, but overall it's kind of, again, flipping it. We already talked about the rotation. You got a couple of other columns here. One of them is a little less important. One of them is very important. This column all the way over to the right is the one that's a little less important. This is your shadowing column. You notice that the body parts that are sort of in the back are always given a little bit of a shadow. So right now, this is the one that's in the back. So it's given a shadow of 2, whereas the body parts that are toward the front are given 0. So if I said, hey, that looks a little too dark, he's not really in the shadow, that hand is up, I might go a little lighter on it, maybe even take it off entirely, what have you. Now, the one that's more important, though, is this P column. And the P column, this is so we talked about that there's a layering based on just your straight order, that your 1 is layered in front of everything behind it. Now, you can change that, though, by using this column. And frankly, oftentimes that is how I use my layering, because it can be a little inconvenient to sometimes move a bunch of parts around in here once they're already in place. So if for whatever reason I wanted to make sure that this hand was in front of every other part of his body. So all right, we were talking about having him say hi, but maybe I want to have him, like grabbing his other arm, right? So grabbing his other arm. Well, obviously he's floating in the back here, so that's going to be kind of hard. But if I put it at A, all of a sudden that hand is now in front of him. Now, you also may notice that some other body parts jumped in front of him. This is one of the wonky things about Wazamake. The layering gets real funky real fast. So you have to kind of use your head and use logic to determine what is actually the real layering. You won't see the real layering unless you go into the game. So right now, it looks like his back arm is now in front of his face and his chest. It isn't. It's really not. And the reason I know it's not is because these things are at the bottom of here. They have the layering of B, which is the same thing the rest of his body has. So as long as these things are higher in the list and have the same layering, they're going to be behind him. But if I change these to A, then yeah, those would be in front of him. But I wouldn't do that because this is, at least this one in particular, his bicep and tricep, that's behind him. That should be the furthest thing back. But it gets wonky, so just have to kind of bear with it. So again, though, we'll take our hand back here and again try to flip this guy so we can see him saying hi. Again, I'm going to rotate. Actually, did I? Oh, yeah, that's fine. So I'm going to bring this guy up here. And I'm actually going to go back to a B because it's way too confusing. I'm going to take his forearm and I'm going to move that up as well. Now, one of the things you're going to notice as you start to work with some of the other body parts, hands are the easiest body part. But one of the other, it looks like he's taking the oath here. So one of the, hands are a pretty easy body part, but some of the other body parts, you'll notice that there's a bunch of colors on them. So let's take his thigh here. And again, all I'm ever doing when I do this is just right-clicking it. And as soon as I right-click it, I can do whatever I want to with it. It's the easiest thing in the world. I know that custom forms are a little intimidating, but I honestly think that once you start getting the hang of how to right-click inside this guy and move his body parts around, it becomes so easy. But let's talk about sort of the angle of the body part, because I do think that is one of the trickier parts to custom forms. So here is a thigh. And a thigh can be particularly tricky to kind of work with. And I'm going to kind of, as we sort of work through these guys, you see that there's a lot of different colors on him. So essentially with the thigh, this is a sort of a close to front angle on the thigh. If you really want the true front straight angle, go to 0-0. That will give you your bearings. If you go to the 0-0 move, that's sort of the best place to start. And what you can see is, from looking at this, is that this is a thigh where the green part means the inner thigh, the blue part means the outer thigh. There is no marking on the front of the thigh, but as you rotate it, you'll see that there is a red marking on the back of the thigh. Okay? Again, you just play around with these body parts. That's all it comes down to. But one of the things that requires some work and some skill and just experience is, not just, obviously eventually it's pretty easy to figure out the sort of the direction of these body parts and what's supposed to be in the front, what's supposed to be in the back. But as you go deeper into this, you start to see more angles. So here we have a fairly straight on shot of the thigh. But unlike that first one, the one at 0-0, this one's a little bit more angled. So that knee's a little bit higher. And as you could go deeper into this, you're even going to see it get higher still, right? So here you go. This is now, you're almost at, not necessarily 90 degrees here, but you're getting closer to it. So that's a knee that's like, you're almost in a, you're a running position or something like that when your knee is there. And again, it just keeps going up. And some of these are not that straightforward. Now you got a knee that is fully pointed at the camera. So that's full 90 degrees there. So you sometimes are going to have to dig around and say, okay, well, what type of angle do I want? Now the knee is going up a little bit. So now your leg is going high. And it's not always easy. Sometimes you need to be thinking about this almost artistically, like you're doing a sculpture or you're doing art, how to draw human anatomy. One thing I do is, I'm kind of a nerd. I've got a bunch of, action figures, things like that. I'll break one out and I'll say, okay, how do I actually want this guy's body positioned? How should his thigh look if he's going to be doing this? Something like that. So, but really, it really just comes down to, your sort of own personal design aesthetic and trying to come up with something that looks good. And it's work, all of this is work. None of this is especially easy. But if it's something you're interested in doing, I do think it can be very rewarding, and you can come up, not obviously financially, but it can be something that's very enjoyable and something that you can, really get a lot of, satisfaction out of doing well. And again, I think ultimately, to me, the reports of how difficult these things are or challenging these things are, I think, are a little bit overstated. If you've got a basic understanding of human anatomy and you are comfortable right-clicking and grabbing. Now, sometimes it might be a little tricky to get to a body part. Some of the inner body parts, like if I want to get this guy's sort of lower torso, oh, I got it. It's like a game of operations sometimes. You'll be trying to pull you know, and you might be getting his arm. Now you may notice I'm often pulling off of the move, like I'm not clicking directly on the move. For some reason, it gets a little weird with that. Like as you're seeing, I'm clicking on this thigh and it's getting the one behind it. But if I click back here, it's going to get that thigh. You just kind of get a feel for it after a while. It just kind of, you know, does its own thing. Okay. So all of that said, so that's really all it is. That's all move creation is. It's just, you know, find the body part you want to move, you know, manipulate it. Again, I'm just using the click wheel here, moving this guy's head. I mean, if I want to float his head, I could float his head. And then once I find the place I'm happy with, I click it into place. I grab this guy's arm. I, you know, grab his other parts of his arm. Oh, one thing that you can do is, once you've kind of identified where a bunch of body parts are, so like say this guy's arm and things are, which really are going to be 1 through 3 up here, you can click and grab all of them and then right click to move them all at once. So in all actuality, if you wanted to move the entire guy, just click, grab everything, and hey, he can move. Now if I'm not happy with it, I can just right click, he goes right back. Or if I want to move them, I can just move them, and that's it. You do have a limited ability to fix your mistakes. The undo button up here can do that. Yeah, this is going to make it miserable, so I'm not going to do that. Oh boy. Okay, so that's some real waza making for you there. They like to punish you sometimes for doing things. So then I'm just going to move them back to where I want them put up there. So that's really it. I mean, really, it's just your own imagination, your own creativity, your own, I hate to use the term because it does seem terrible, but your own sort of artistic approach to it. How do you want to build a human being? How well do you see human anatomy? And one of the things I would definitely caution you as you do this is to, pay attention to how things look. Certain things are, harder to design properly. I mean, certain leg positions, I always find myself deeply dissatisfied with how they look. Look at how they're doing in the game. Look at how similar moves look in the game. Even if you don't want the move exactly as it's done or the form exactly as it's done in the game, if you look at the way certain moves are laid out in the game, and certain forms are laid out in the game, you could at least start to get some sense of, okay, this would be the proper way to make the legs look. This would be the proper angle for the arms. Even with this guy here, I look at his bicep over here. Is this really the natural way a bicep would look when you're in this position? Probably not. I probably would want to see maybe a little bit more of a curved, turn to it or something like that. So, again, it's sort of, how do you sort of design this to get to a position where it feels natural, it'll look natural in the game. Okay, all of that said, now the big question is, how do you make any of this stick? And that's one of the things that unfortunately happens to a lot of people as they're doing stuff in Wazamake, especially custom forums. You do something, it looks cool, and then it's gone. Well, the way you do it is you have to save a different file. So if I were making a move, you guys are, I'm sure, pretty accustomed to this. You're going to save your bytes file to somewhere in here, right? I'm going to save some kind of a new move file in here, byte file, what have you. And obviously, if we're loading it, it would be the one above it. But if you're going to be changing forms, you're going to be saving something here. So it would actually, you would just save it here and save something called it custom forms. So I'll call it custom forms. I'm saving it there. Now the thing that you need to keep in mind when you were talking about saving these files is, even if I've only edited a single form, when I save a form file, it actually saves all of the forms in the game. So again, there's like 40,000 individual forms. They're a little less than that. But even if I've only edited one, you're basically saving all of them, which means that for a single move, If I say were to edit a bunch of different things in it, so we're going to go to this form and edit this guy's head, that position. If I'm going to go to this and I'm going to, angle this a little differently and, move his hand there. All of these forms are going to be saved into the same custom forms file. And when I close out the game, when I go to open this move again, really what I'm doing is I'm going to open both the move file that I've created, the bytes file that I've created, I should say, as well as the forms file. And there's really no order to it. You can do them both at the same time. But if you open the bytes file and you don't open the forms file, any custom form is going to go back to its standard version. Because basically anything, Wasmig goes back to the default of all forms whenever you close it out and restart it. Let's see, anything else I'm missing? Well, one key thing that I did want to mention is if you need to create a new form, so for instance, say you're working through this and you're really happy with the way 2106 looks, and I really like the way this looks, and I want to do something that's just a little bit different than this. I want to kind of tweak this just a bit, get him to kind of move that hand down a little bit. Well, what you would do is you would go over here and just like you have copied individual lines of moves, it's the same thing, but with all of the moves in a form. So basically, if I click up here, that basically copies the entire form in here. I could also copy individual lines. So if I just wanted to copy this guy's arm, I could copy this as well. Same thing. Right click, it's the first option. But if I wanted to click here and I want to say replace what's in here, all I have to do is go up here, click the third option down like always, and the guy's in the same position. Now he's over here because as we see his FX is way off from where he was. So if I moved him back to where he is, now it would look exactly the same. But say now I want to I want to raise his arm even higher. Same thing, just right-clicking, moving my mouse, get this thing where it needs to go, using the click wheel, and now I've got a thing where he's raising his hand in class. So, again, something very, very simple. I mean, I would probably say if this were like a real animation I wanted to do, I'd want a little bit more movement in him from frame to frame. I'd want him to be doing something a little bit more, maybe, moving his, moving his chest here a little bit or something. Of course, it's not going to let me get the chest. Yeah, there we go. Moving the chest a little bit, straining his neck a little bit, just creating a little bit more full body motion there. And again, I'd probably something down here with his legs as well, just shifting a little bit, because nobody really just moves one body part in life. They just, you move a body part, you're moving everything. So again, you got to think about it like you would if you were drawing somebody, if you're sculpting somebody. There are certain physics that you have to take into account when you're doing things like that. So I think that pretty much covers everything. So I obviously, if you guys have any follow-up questions, I'm available. So please, don't hesitate to ask. If I think of anything else, I may do an edit to this at some point. But for right now, this is what we'll work with. So thank you guys for your time, and good luck making moves.